Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Tiff, and I've been loot goblining around Tarkov for many years. I'll preface that I have a slow/tactical centered playstyle, so if that isn't the one that you're looking to get into, this might not be the channel for you. Let me pause right here and give you a sample of what sorts of tips you might hear throughout the video. So right off the get-go, I'm going to the back hallway and opening this door. You might be thinking, why the hell is that important? One thing to know about Tarkov is that doors will always spawn the same way every raid, meaning this door will always be closed by default. It's a small mind game thing, but I'm closing the door behind me because I don't want another player passing through this building to know that I've been here. Likewise, if I'm passing through an area where I know a door should be open or closed by default, that's an automatic clue that I need to be cognizant that there could be a player nearby. I've had the opportunity to wander around the new Ground Zero map in Tarkov and felt like this was a good example of a solid solo raid and wanted to point out tips that could be helpful to first-time players. Some of these tips may be obvious if you've played Tarkov before, but remember, we all started in the same place, and Tarkov is super overwhelming the first wipe that you play. We've all been there, and it feels like you're being pushed off a cliff repeatedly from how rough it is to learn. These tips are meant to point out things new players might not even be considering as factors in raid, and I'm not saying that my playstyle is correct by any means, nor should it be the one that you adopt, but just use it as a general guideline as you develop your own sense of play. It's going to be nearly impossible as a new player to know right off the bat, but the first thing you want to try to take note of is if your spawn is in a high traffic area or not. This could mean a multitude of things. For example, whether or not there's a spawn nearby you, or perhaps knowing if there's a quest in your building. Basically, you should be aware of anything that might attract players towards your location early in the raid. There are interactive maps online that show you things like possible PMC spawn points as well as nearby player spawns, so you can use those to get acquainted with to get started. I promise you, it seems like a lot that you need to know already, but the knowledge will become more natural over time. So with this spawn, I know at the top of these stairs is a couple of offices with decent loot, but I also know there's a quest up there, so I'm taking advantage of having the closest spawn and making my way up there first. This leads me to my second tip. Make note of possible entrances and exits to the buildings. I'm pretty sure there is only one way up to these specific office buildings, so if any player approaches me, they will have to take the stairs and make noise. I'm gonna roll us back a second to point a few more things out. Be cautious of your surroundings. I know that no one should have beat me upstairs, but clearing common angles is a fantastic habit to build as a new player. Players above can see the stairwell pretty clearly and can easily shoot down at you, so just be mindful of verticality. Another thing to pay attention to is the barbed wire littered around the stairs. These will hurt you and can cause heavy bleeding as well as make noise to alert any nearby player. One way to get around this is to use your environment to your benefit. For example, here you can utilize the railing to safely navigate to the top and past the barbed wire. This is a blessing and a curse, because the stairwell may also be the only safe way out. I haven't taken a look, but another option would be to see if there's a nearby scaffolding to safely jump out as a secondary escape route if possible. Here's a tip for looting. In a previous major patch, Tarkov updated how loot spawns. There are two types of containers, static and dynamic. Static means it will always be there 100% of the time in any raid that you spawn for that map, whereas dynamic just means there's a chance for an extra bag to spawn. There's also what I like to call loose loot, so items that spawn outside of containers on top of tables or floors, etc. I also want to note while we're talking about loot, knowing what you need to pick up is a whole different beast. For new players, I recommend focusing on learning the maps and gunplay so that you can hone the skills that will help you survive raids. Remember, you will lose anything outside of your safety container if you die in raid. Most items become way less valuable if you cannot survive with it because they will lose their found in raid status. Found in raid status is specifically important because some quests require items to be found in raid in order to qualify. And also, only found in raid items can be vendored on the flea market that you unlock at level 15. Now that we're on the street side of the office, I want to point out again that it's important to be aware of your surroundings. If you'll notice, the entire wall is a giant glass window facing the street, which means somebody could easily spot me waddling around looking for loot up here if they knew where to look. A lot of people ask me how I see during night raids without any sort of night vision or light source, and I'm going to tell you my secret. I'm scanning my screen for moving, shadowy blobs. That is probably very unhelpful, but the best way that I can personally describe what I do. Your mileage may vary using this tactic. You can see that I'm not shooting on sight either. I'm actually doing some calculations in my head whether or not that's an AI scav or not. Most scavs will traverse the map on specific routes, but I'm just not familiar with Ground Zero enough to know if that's a scav path or not. I'm also wondering if it's worth A, shooting and giving up my location to other players on the map, and B, if I can for sure kill them given my weapon type, effective range, and ammo. Those are just a few things to think about before going trigger happy at any moving target you may see, and more important for players looking to adopt a ghost style gameplay. Some people could call this style ratting, but I don't really see it that way. It's just taking Tarkov at a slower pace. I'm still actively moving through the map, but I just don't want other people to see nor hear me doing so. In-game headsets are a huge game changer in terms of locating other players. Depending on which one you choose, footsteps are a huge giveaway, and sprinting across the map, given that most players are using a headset, will put you at a huge disadvantage. I also tend to not openly engage on a fight I'm not sure I can win 100%. It's a completely different story if a team pushes me, but if I'm not guaranteed a good chance at winning an engagement, I'm not going to fire first. It's also important to note that I'm not beelining toward my kill to loot immediately, because if there's any unspoken rule of Tarkov, is that there's always one more. And I've also alerted nearby players of my position, so I need to secure my way out of this building first as well. This dynamic could obviously change if you're playing in a group, because you would have teammates to watch your back, but if you're a solo player, you're on your own and have to be cautious of pretty much everything. It will also change depending on what you find the most fun from the game. For example, I get the most serotonin when I extract out of raid with several high value items. Player gear can't be sold on flea market and tends to be less valuable overall, so it's not my main goal to seek out PvP. Another thing is learning how to be observant. I see another firefight taking place in the same location. It could be another solo player, could be the person's teammate, who knows. Honestly, here I'm just taking pot shots to see if I can drop anyone else from here for shits and giggles. Once you fire and the fight hasn't ended, try to peek from a different angle or you're gonna get pre-fired if you underestimate your enemy. I'm gonna let this engagement play out, but I have no clue if this peace guy was aiming at me and just had terrible aim, or if there's another player that I haven't spotted yet. Before I wrap up, I want to quickly show off this bizarre shrine hidden away in a bathroom stall. Usually, displays like this will have rare spawns nearby, so take a look around and see if you can find anything shiny. If you're having a hard time knowing what to look for, you can kinda cheat the system. I paused the clip, but do you see this white dot beginning to show up on my screen? This is an indicator that there is an item nearby your cursor. This is helpful because sometimes the loot spawns are scuffed and it can fall inside tables or be hidden by objects, but you can use the cursor trait to find all the hidden loot. The closer you are to the item, the more opaque the dot will become. Hopefully you picked up something helpful somewhere during this video, and if this raid breakdown where I voice my thoughts and give tips is helpful, please like and subscribe. Before I depart, one last tip I'd like to give you. Just because you're close to extract doesn't mean that you should let your guard down. I may have skipped it in editing, but I've been wandering around the map without seeing anybody else up until this point, but it doesn't mean that all the threats are neutralized. Play smart, keep your guard up, and happy raiding. Now get out there and go be successful. Thank you for watching and have a great day.